The prototype is one of the most mysterious characters within Poppy Playtime. We barely know anything about him, and he's always the one pulling the strings. So who is the prototype, and what do we actually know about him? Hey everybody, I'm Jeeps, and today we'll learn just that. Consider subscribing for more content like this, and let's cover everything we know about the prototype. Now, starting off, who actually is the prototype? Well, the prototype, otherwise known as Experiment 1006, was one of the first successful experiments that led to the creation of the Bigger Bodies Initiative, which was ultimately led by Dr. Harley Sawyer. This initiative creating other widely known experiments like Huggy Wuggy and Mommy Longlegs, which I'll refer to in a moment. Now, when was the prototype actually created? And when did his experiment take place? Well, the time and date at which the prototype was created is uncertain, but knowing that Experiment 1222 was Mommy Longlegs in 1991, and that Huggy Wuggy, Experiment 1170, was created in 1984, we could do a little math here to find the possible time that the prototype could have been created. So bear with me, this may sound confusing, but trust me, it may hold some answers. Okay, so essentially there is a 7-year difference between Huggy Wuggy's experiment and Mommy Longlegs' experiment, and they are also 52 experiments apart, 1170 and 1222. So let's say they kept a strict schedule and continued 52 experiments over every 7 years. Then that would mean if we multiplied 7 and 52 by 4, we would get 28 years and 208 experiments. And going back 28 years from Mommy Longlegs' experiment in 1991 would end us up in the year 1963 at Experiment 1014, 8 experiments away from Experiment 1006, the prototype. Anyways, see what I'm saying? Sometimes math does end up being useful. So that answers the question. The prototype was originally created in 1963 or earlier. But again, this is all based off of theory, so let me know what you think in the comments below. Anyways, apart from that, everyone often asks who is the prototype, but I don't think we question enough what he is. You see, the prototype wasn't built like many of the other creatures we find along the way. It wasn't tall, doesn't have big scary teeth, or at least that's what we know from our information, but rather he takes the form of a mechanical hand, almost like a prosthetic limb in our world, but contains flesh, veins, and other bodily functions, making the prototype a living organism. And it's also important to note that the prototype was also one of the most successful experiments, mainly being due to his high intellect. And this is proven several times through his analyzation skills, which we learn about from the VHS tapes in the games. The most noticeable VHS tape being log 08502, in which a scientist explains how Experiment 1006 disassembled an alarm clock, made a laser pointer, disabled the camera, and hid it in a blind spot, attempting to escape but ultimately failing, resulting in the death of another Playtime co-employee. And this is just one of the many ways we see the prototype's brains here. So after acknowledging all that, some questions do start popping up. Like, why does the prototype continue to take the bodies of other experiments after we defeat each one of them in the game? And honestly, I believe there is a very simple answer to this. The prototype is using other experiments to build himself up and make himself more complete, or at least will in time. I infer this because the shrine we see made from Catnap in Chapter 3 of Poppy Playtime, you can see parts of other experiments we've seen before placed on it, representing that they could become one with Catnap, and that the prototype is building himself up to be something bigger than anything we've seen before. It doesn't make sense entirely timeline-wise, because wouldn't the prototype have himself built up by Chapter 3 because we already killed 2 other experiments? But in Chapter 3, we'll only see his hand once again, so what's going on with that? I'm not sure, but I'll cover that in another video. And alongside this, why does the prototype hate the company so much? So much that an uprising occurred, leaving the Playtime facility desolate for years to come. Well, all in all, this is because of the experiments that were taking place, and not just what they were experimenting for, but who they were experimenting on. Children, elderly, Playtime employees themselves, innocent people. This is why the prototype hates Playtime Co., and it's why the other toys do as well. However, this is mainly due to the prototype's influence, as we could see some toys like Kissy Missy and Poppy don't react as hostile. But without getting off topic, there's one last mystery to be solved. Who actually is the prototype? Well, you see, there are many theories that could suggest who the prototype actually is, but a popular one that I've come to stick with is that the prototype could be the founder of Playtime Co. himself, Elliot Ludwig. And while this theory is a long shot at best, in perspective, it can actually make a lot of sense. Essentially, Elliot volunteered himself to become an experiment due to his old age, which would make sense as he's the one who built the entire company and was aware of the experiments. Experiments like 814, the rat experiment, and Huggy Wuggy, as we can see experiment 814 on his desk, and an email between Leith Pierre and Elliot Ludwig in relation to Huggy Wuggy escaping. A VHS log we see on Mob Entertainment's YouTube channel, where Huggy Wuggy escapes the Playtime Co. facility. And he did this in order to live on with his creations, even after death, and most likely in order to live on with his daughter, who is highly assumed to be Poppy. This is starting to sound like a whole other game where a creator becomes a part of his own creation and basically drags other people into it. Oh boy. And while this theory makes sense in many ways, it could be disproved just as easily, as when Thomas Clark volunteered to become Brawn, the toys attacked him. So why wouldn't they attack the prototype? Well, I'm not sure if the prototypes ever physically met the other experiments, but I do know that when he talked to Catnap never really attacked him. But there's a whole storyline and relation behind them, so it wouldn't make sense for him to. But I have an entire video explaining that relation, so if you are interested in that, check it out right here. Either way, it's a very interesting perspective, so let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Anyways, that was everything we know about the prototype and some theories and thoughts I had when it came to certain questions in the community. And don't forget, while some of this information is 100% approved by the games and creators themselves, a large portion of this is speculation and theories. So don't take it too seriously, and feel free to share your own thoughts and theories in the comments, as this is what communities are made for. Anyways, let me know what I should upload more in the future. If you enjoyed the video, I'm Jeeps, and I'll see you next time.